mercy, joy, and success. Every day's a chance for happiness. Yes, we can live a beautiful, crazy plan. Every day's a celebration. Every day's a celebration. Welcome to the Great Song Adventure. I'm here with my co-host Paul Zolo, and I'm Louise Goffin. Paul, what have we got today?
Hey, Louise. Well, I'm really happy to share this. This is Joachim Cooder, who I interviewed several months ago, and he's the son of Ry Cooder, one of the world's great musicians, and they've been working together. Joachim is a wonderful drummer. Like you, he grew up around some pretty great people. I mean, Jim Keltner's drums were almost always set up in the house. So he learned a lot, but he just had a way with drums and rhythm. And so he plays with his father, and they did the album Prodigal Son. And it's such a beautiful mixture of their styles because he's a young man and he's using, electronica and Pro Tools and the new methods of making music. And his father doesn't do that. Joachim does a lot of looping and using interesting different kinds of instruments. It makes really beautiful sounds, and they combine their sounds. And so Prodigal Son is just a gorgeous album. And it was when I was talking to Ry about that I got to know his son. And, they went out on tour together. And then I heard about Joachim's album. He did an EP recently, which is called Fuchsia Machu Picchu. And I was thinking, being old school, oh, this will be interesting and novel. I don't know if these will be great songs. They are great songs. There's some just beautiful, heartfelt songs. Gaviota Drive, which is one of my favorites, just so inspirational, and a lot of these beautiful songs. So I'm really glad to have this chance to talk to Joachim Cooder.
Jim Keltner was doing a lot of things with samples way ahead of his time. He was playing around with sampling drums, so Joachim must have had a lot of mentoring from Jim over those years.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's kind of cool because Ry is such a traditionalist. His dad, he plays in real time. When he does solos, he plays the whole solo, and it's very old school. And yet he's very open to his son and that new energy he's bringing. So they really combine their talents and the technologies in really beautiful ways.
That's great. Did he ever go to Havana with his dad? Did he?
He did.
Yeah.
When they were doing the Buena Vista Social Club album, Joachim was there, and he was recording a lot of it, and he was a big part of that. And he's also played with other people, like Mavis Staples and other great people that his father's worked with. So he's had quite an amazing career so far as a young man. And he just they had their first baby. And so that was, as Ry said, that's the reason they went out on tour, because so we got to put some more beans into the pot. So Ry, being a good father, went out and took his son out on tour. And I could tell you, they just love performing together. There's a lot of love between the two of them and respect. That's
beautiful. So we have this interview's in two parts, right?
Yes.
Well, I can't wait to listen to this again.
Yeah. Well, let's hear it now. Here's Joachim Cooder. I'm so glad to talk to you. I mean, I really love your music, and I so love the new album.
Thank you.
And also the new album you did with your father, The Prodigal Son. It's just such a beautiful album.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I love the piece you wrote about it.
Oh, thanks. I got to say, getting to interview your dad, a great honor and just so fun because, as you probably know well, he's a pretty brilliant guy and has a lot of ideas, and he goes a lot of places that no one ever goes. He kind of was into the whole history of how the popular song kind of evolved and all that cool stuff. It was great.
Right.
But it was also, I found very touching because I'm a father myself, and just how much of the interview was about you. I mean, when I said, so your son is going to be playing drums on the tour, and he said, "Oh, of course. If he wouldn't, I wouldn't go. I would just stay home in my chair and play music." I thought that was so sweet,
Yeah, I mean, being a new father myself, I had never looked at it. I never thought about it from his perspective and how cool it is. I can only imagine how much I would love playing with my daughter. It would just be, that would be amazing.
Yeah.
It didn't really dawn on me until, of course, because this is the way it goes. And then now I'm a dad. And so that'd be cool one day.
Yeah. When I talked to him, as I recall, your new baby was just born And then you also have a 3-year-old, is that right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And your father gave the whole reason for the tour is, he's got 2 kids and we got to put some more beans in the pot, so we're gonna make some money.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. It is hard to make money playing music.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what I found. That's my 2 cents.
Yeah, that's an understatement. And clearly the music business has changed a lot. I mean, you were born in 1978, is that correct?
That is.
I was in college then. One of the things I did in college a lot was listen to your dad's records a lot, and they just meant so much to me. But the music business then, if you bought records, people were making money, and there was no other way to get the music, really. So it has changed so much. So a lot of people, like from his generation, they're not even doing it anymore. If they are, they're not making music like this. So I'm really glad that he made such a great album, but it was really clear that you were a big, big part of that, and that you inspired the whole thing and kind of guided it.
Well, I mean, he does say that, but a lot of I'm living next door to him right now. Our family, we're there. We live in Mount Washington, but we're temporarily next door in Santa Monica, and there's one studio. So I'm in there a lot with my Imbiras and all my little goodies. And he would come in and just see what I was up to, and then he would just kind of, in his corner of the studio, just start singing along with some of the stuff. And I would see, I see what you're doing, and you wouldn't see it coming, the stuff he was hearing. But that's kind of how we did some of the other stuff. Like sometimes I make these little loops and things, and he appropriates them. That's always a fun thing, because you never know what somebody else, especially him, is going to hear and what they're going to bring to it. That's why collaborating is always so fun. You don't know what the other person's going to do.
So prior to this album, you had done stuff like that where he worked with your tracks like that and used them?
Well, I made some stuff for the Made the Staples record.
Yeah.
That he produced, and those were tracks I made just not for her or for that record. I just had them that I was just messing with, and he turned them into some really. I'll Be Rested.
Yes.
Which he's doing on this record, but the Mavis record, I'll Be Rested, is very spatial and has a bunch of funny little things I did.
Yeah,
and I love the way that came out. That's one of my favorite ones.
Yeah, it's beautiful. I was just checking out the Mavis stuff, and I think you said on that one that it started with a bit of your dad. Like you found a bit of him playing mandolin in Cuba that you looped. So you started. Yes. That's
that record, I think. I mean, that's that song.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, exactly.
Cool.
Yeah, because I left Cuba with all these running DATs. Everything got recorded on DAT. No matter what, it was just running the whole time. And then I came across that stuff, and I just started listening to it, and then that's how that thing happened.
Yeah, it's cool. And it's cool too that your dad embraces it, because he's such a musical purist. I mentioned how you use loops, and I asked him, do you ever use loops? And he goes, oh, no, I don't do that. He does that. I just play, It's such a different approach.
Totally.
And yet he has such respect and love for the beauty of what you're doing that it's such a cool way that you combine both of your styles, yours, which is very modern, and his, which is less modern.
Well, he was always, Keltner was doing some sampling and stuff back in the 80s. And Ry always wanted more of it. He always liked it.
Really?
Get Rhythm, there's a bunch of stuff, and so he always liked playing along with that stuff.
That's cool.
Yeah.
And, speaking of Keltner, I had read that it was him that really inspired you to be a drummer. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, I was so fascinated by him and his whole little world when I was probably since the very beginning. And it was during, I'm pretty sure I was probably 4 years old, so that would have been the slide area they were working on. And Keltner left a kit in our house. And I would go down after they would leave in the night or in the morning before they would get there and play on his kit. And then he got there and saw me playing and saw that I was like really playing it. And then, so he gave me my first kit.
Wow.
And so that was, I was just always drawn to the drums and drawn to him. And luckily guitar never made any sense to me because I would just be so sad to be Ry Cooder's guitar playing son. I'm glad I never had to do that, try to do that.
That's interesting. So you were really drawn to the drums first. You weren't drawn to the guitar in the same way?
Oh, not at all. I wouldn't know. I still don't. I'm just starting. I've just learned 3 chords on the ukulele, and I can play all my songs now if I want to, just because it's fun to do that. But the real guitar makes 0 sense to me, and that's fine.
That's interesting. And you play keyboard, so you're a good keyboard player, right?
Yeah, I play keyboards, and my imbiras that I play are not chromatic, but they're, tuned percussion, basically.
What is that? What is an imbira?
Well, the thing, it's how I made it's what I do live and what my record is. It's this electric big thumb piano, like the little African things that I feel like people see in gift shops or like those little things, the little tines, the little metal things. And this is made by this incredible guy named Bill Wesley. And he makes these giant imbiras. I've been playing them for over 20 years probably. It's just that now they're electric, so I can start playing it. I can play it live, which I never got to do before.
Okay. I mean, I know the sound. I wasn't sure if that was a keyboard, but you use that in a lot. It's very much like bells. It kind of chimes.
Yes, exactly.
I see. That's beautiful. So is the electric one that you're playing, is it like you're playing a keyboard, or is it more like the instrument itself?
No, you play it, you sort of pluck it.
Oh, I see. Cool. And then do you loop that as well?
Yeah, I do both. I have it set up so I can do it either way. I can loop it and then play over that, or just play it straight up. Just go for it.
That's cool. Speaking of the drums and just picking them up while they were in your house, does that mean you just sat down, you kind of knew what to do, you knew how to play it? Because it's not a logical thing necessarily to play drums, how you really do it. And was it natural to you?
The drums?
Yeah, when you said you sat down at Keltner's kit when he wasn't there, and you knew how to play, or you started playing.
Yeah, I guess I just that was that's what I do. That's what I did then, and still do now. So I never thought. I don't think it was conscious. I don't think it was planned. But that kind of stuff rarely is. I don't think, unless you're, you hear about people who say, I'm going to play guitar and like so-and-so, or I want to be like this. And that's more kind of planned out. For me, it was always just something that I was drawn to and started doing.
But did you know how to do it from seeing him? Like you put your feet on the pedals and play the snare with, did you do it correctly from seeing him, or did you just know to take to it instinctually?
I mean, I think that's kind of like a egg or the hen thing, because you have to have some instinct, and then you have to have some visual. It's like a little bit of both.
That's fascinating, because I'm more of a...
See it, and then you think, I don't know, I think it was just, that was the thing. It was just very clear.
That's interesting because I find I'm a guitarist, and I find even all these years I don't have a natural ability to play drums. I find it kind of confusing, what the left hand is doing. I don't take to it naturally, so I'm always amazed by that.
And I would say that's like how I am about guitar.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah,
and it's kind of cool. With Jim Keltner, you had one of the greatest drummers of all time right there in your home. I mean, of anyone to have Keltner there.
I know. It was very, very, very cool to be around him.
So when you started and I'm sorry?
What were you going to say?
So when you started playing and he saw you were playing, did he at that point start showing you what to do and giving you tips and helping you out?
Yeah. I don't think he ever showed me what to do, but I just think he with a lot of people, I think it's just being around them is always the most illuminating thing, because they don't really give you. He never really, showed me stuff. You just have to be fortunate enough to be around people.
Yeah,
that's always the thing. Even if they're not, even if it's like in a different field, even if you're around a great painter or something, it's just like for the most part, it's just like being near these people who do great things, and you always get something out of that. And then he also gave me this kit, and that was the first step.
And what kind of kit did he give you?
It was a Remo. It was Remo PTS. I don't know what PTS stands for. It was white and very light, and I still have it.
Wow.
I don't know where it is, but it's somewhere.
A lot of parents, they don't want their kids to play drums. I'm assuming that your dad was cool with you playing drums. Yes.
Sure. I mean, because then we could play together. We could just sit in the studio and I mean, it's a musical household. So.
Yeah. And I got to say, one of the things I love about your drumming, and on your dad's record and elsewhere, is just it's really creative. It's kind of like a jazz drummer. You don't rarely do just a normal backbeat. It's always kind of really creative and interesting.
Oh, thank you.
It's not conventional.
Well,
but soulful always.
It is an instrument. I would say it's pretty mishandled for the most part, but so is the guitar. So is everything.
Yeah.
For that matter, I mean.
I know what you mean.
Jazz is a place where you still see people. Well, not everybody. There's some slamming, probably jazz drummers, but I just think as a way of looking at it, it's not rock and roll. That's what really sort of, kind of just fixed, kind of. Rock and roll made everybody just do everything just exactly the same way. And they want to play loud and hard, and I'm not the guy for that. Yeah.
And it's so nice to hear what you're doing because it's so much more musical and interesting. I always remember I interviewed Mose Allison years ago, and he really hated that rock beat. He says it's so martial, so regimented, and you would think rock and roll wouldn't want that, and so I know what you mean. Is that what you were saying in terms of how the drums are misused? How do you see that?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Along with everything, though. Rarely are you around somebody who is playing their instrument in a truly unique way, in a beautiful, thoughtful, creative way. No matter what the instrument is.
Yeah. I know. I agree so much. That's why this album that you did with your dad and talking to him was so nourishing, because he obviously comes from that place where it's not just beautiful songs and great playing, but the sonics of the thing that you two created is so beautiful. It's such a beautiful sounding album with your collages and his guitar playing, and then the great vocal, the gospel harmonies and all. It just sounds so rich and great, and it's so rare to hear something that just sonically is so delightful to listen to. It doesn't hurt your ears.
Well, that's so good to hear.
Yeah. And clearly that's where you guys come from. That's what it's all about.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, it's interesting that you were raised in that. I mean, it was interesting to me to talk to your dad because I knew him from not only his stuff, but playing on so many albums by people I love, like Randy Newman and Stones. But he doesn't seem to really have much, love of any of that. His love of music is all before that. He's not really a rock and roll guy, or he's not really a great lover of any of that music. Or did I get that wrong, do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think but there was a lot of music that he did back then. I mean, I guess it was just his past that kept taking him where it took him.
Mm.
But he speaks fondly of Randy Newman, though, for sure.
I didn't mean he put down Randy, but when I asked him, the great songwriters, he kept going to, Jimmy Van Heusen in that era.
Yeah.
Which was surprising to me, but I get it. I really love your EP that you put out. It's beautiful.
Oh, thank you.
And I love so many of those songs. I think the one that right now is the one that's really getting to me is a Gaviota Drive. That is just so beautiful.
Oh, cool.
Now, it seems to me that's a real place. Is Gaviota Drive real? An actual location?
Oh, yeah. That's where it's in Laguna Beach. And that's where my wife's family, her grandparents moved down there in the 50s, before there was the 405 freeway, before it was probably pretty amazing back then. And so we've been going down to this house where her grandmother lived for, until she passed away recently. And when my daughter was probably just a few months old, we lived down there for a while. And it was our morning routine that she would wake up at like 5:30 or 6 a.m. and then my wife would go back to sleep, and then I would take her in one of those little like carrying pouches, and we would just start walking. And it was still dark out, and the waves were crashing, and it was this quiet early morning thing that we had, just the two of us. And I sang the song to her as every morning, and kept perfecting it a little bit by little bit. And so it was kind of like that's where all these songs kind of come from my daughter, or just I had never written or sang any of my own songs at all until just a couple years ago. I never would have imagined it or thought of myself as a singer or a songwriter until just now.
You're really good. You're a beautiful songwriter. There's really beautiful songs. So are you saying
thank you.
Yeah. Are you saying with that one, so you were composing, making it up just while walking along, separate from any instrument, just in your head? Yeah.
A little bit of both. I mean, I had that Mbira with me down in Laguna. This is the one instrument I take with me. So I would kind of do a little bit of playing it here and there and get a little melody that loops in my head, and then in the morning when I'd be walking with her, I would just sing over what I remember playing. A lot of stuff has come out, like there's another song which I remember coming up with. We had this pen, like a little colored pen, like to have, like that my daughter would play inside of, so she couldn't run off and fall down the stairs. And I would just be sitting in there with her with this little tank drum, this metal thing. As she's carrying on and doing all this stuff, I'm just sort of tapping on this thing and then coming up with a thing there. So a lot of this stuff, just I would write next. It would be just being with her and just singing and just. Luckily, I keep my phone nearby so I can record. I can secretly record what's being done.
That's smart to do that.
Yeah. And I guess everybody always has phones, but I try to keep it out of sight, and then I can just quickly just press record.
Well, that's good, because sometimes, and I'm a songwriter too, you have something and you think, oh, I'll remember that. But you don't always remember it. It's
never.
That moment, you know?
You'll never remember it.
Yeah. That's really interesting, because, I knew your, I don't know what you call them, sonic collages. What your dad, I think, called them tone poems, but I heard some of those tracks
cool.
pardon me?
That's cool. I like that sound. Tone poems, that's pretty fresh.
Yeah, that's nice. But I was thinking, I bet they're good, but I don't know if you could, if he's going to be a good songwriter. Those are really beautiful, but these are real beautiful songs, that you wrote to him. And
thank you.
It's cool that came out of that, because that's a natural thing that you're with your daughter, and so it's coming out of that real emotion. So they're real, they're not.
Totally.
Yeah.
They're all so real.
Yeah.
I wasn't putting on any airs and pretending to be anything I'm not.
Mm-hmm. And you can feel that. It comes across. It's the same thing with your dad's music, too, that it's authentic. It's the real thing. There's nothing fake about it. And you can feel that, especially nowadays. I think there's so much that is kind of contrived and fake and doesn't seem like that. That when you hear something like this, you can really feel that, and it's a good feeling.
Well, I'm so happy to hear that.
And it's also really nice, like the main chorus about on Gaviota Drive. I'll leave the light on. It's a real nice, bright image, and a loving image too. That I'll leave light on for you.
Yeah, totally. It's kind of like time. It's like this sort of time lapse. Like as she gets older, and eventually, like this place will always be there for her to come back to. Kind of, the light will always be on for her there.
Yeah. That's nice.
Like someplace she'll always have.
Yeah. Also, speaking of the light, the song "Everyone Sleeps in the Light," that's very, very beautiful too. I love that one.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, that one. That's the one. That one. I came up with that line in a dream, and I know talking about dreams is not that. Nobody really wants to hear that. It's like you can only hearing other people's dreams is kind of pointless because it just is all so jumbled. But this friend of mine had written a pilot, a TV show, and he called me one night and said, "I need to give them the title of it by tomorrow." And I said, "Why? Sorry, I don't have any ideas." And then that night, I dreamt that I came up with it, and it was "Everyone Sleeps in the Light." And I called him in my dream, and I said, "Nick, I got it. Everyone sleeps in the light." And then he said, No, it'll never work. And had this, weird dream reason why. And then the next morning, I woke up, and I called him, and I said, "Nick, I dreamt your title. That's got to mean, it's the answer. Everyone sleeps in the light." And he said, "Nope, that'll never work." It's the same. I was like, "Oh my God, I'm doing this all over again." But then I just kept it and wrote a song around it.
Ah, so he didn't use it, but you did.
He didn't use it. Both in the dream and in reality, he did not want my title.
And I know what you mean about dreams, but when it comes to a song, there are several times, songwriters have dreamt songs or part of them, and that's
totally.
Yeah, and that sure tells you a lot about songwriting, what it's all about.
Yeah, exactly.
That you really often, if you're lucky, tapping into or finding something that's kind of beyond you. It's not part of your normal mind. Those are the best things when you come up with something like that.
Oh yeah, totally. That's what. Yeah, we have, and that's why I love hearing what my daughter says. She speaks in kids are sort of more like your dream. They're in a dream state all the time.
Yeah.
And they say incredible things that you would never think of in a million years. And that's why you have to always listen and pay attention and see what they're saying, because you just don't want to miss it. Mm-hmm. It's too cool.
Right. They haven't got...
When I see parents who put a phone in front of their kid's face while they're at a restaurant, it makes me insane. I'm like, are you guys you just can't handle like having to talk to your child for like 40 minutes while you're at this restaurant. Like, that's just so horrible.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like, put it down and talk to them. you might actually be like blown away.
Yeah, I'm with you. Totally.
That was Joachim Cooder and Paul Zolo. That was so great. What a great conversation. I so agree with what he said about kids at restaurants. I mean, you know, you do want to have a conversation. I remember someone teaching me a long time ago that children are eaters, not diners. And we want to take our time over food, and kids just want to eat and then get on with playing.
Yeah, I think both of us being parents, and Joachim too, we were sensitive to that. And it was great, you know, when they're little kids, to engage with them. And some people don't want to engage with little kids, but they need engagement. And that you don't always have the energy as a parent because it's nonstop. But people that complain, like, I can't believe parents that put their kids in front of TVs. Well, after 8 hours, TV is a great blessing at that point, you know. And like his dad, there's a lot of artistry in what he does. He never plays a normal kind of backbeat. He's a very creative drummer. And they have so much fun making music, and yet they have such different approaches to it that it's really great what they do together. And I like this talk because it's all about parenthood. It's about his dad and about him being a parent. So there's some good familial spirit being carried on here.
So when he performs live, does he sit behind a drum kit and have a mic to sing the lead vocals on his songs?
You know, when he plays with his dad, he's the drummer.
Mm-hmm.
But when he's doing his own stuff, he doesn't play drums like that. He's usually singing or using other instruments and or loops, you know, electronic textures. Yeah.
Fascinating. I'd love to see him live.
Yeah.
Well, that's so great.
Well, that was part one. We got part two coming up. So thank you for listening today. You're with Joachim Cooder.
We're the Great Song Adventure, and you can find us on all the handles. We'll see you next time.